Pakistan Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif is expected to make a crucial official visit to Bangladesh along with Pakistan Army Chief General Asim Munir. And if this visit takes place, it would mark the first visit by a Pakistani head of government to Dhaka in more than 2 decades. And the proposed visit comes at a time when Bangladesh-Pakistan relations have become intimate. Sources and reports indicate that several agreements are expected to be signed between Dhaka and Islamabad, including a major defense cooperation framework. One of the key proposals reportedly involves Pakistan assisting in the modernization of Bangladesh ordnance factories. The timing is also extremely significant. The development comes shortly after Bangladesh Prime Minister Tariq Rahman's China outreach, because Pakistan's military establishment appears deeply involved in this engagement. Professor Swaran Singh, do you think that India's policy towards Bangladesh should now, aggressively shift because Bangladesh is also drifting in the wrong way?
There is no doubt. I agree with my co-panelists. Expectation was that the way Dr. Yunus had rewritten the liberation history of Bangladesh was taking a U-turn on relations with Pakistan would perhaps change after a popular government. And the popular government did come. Tariq Rahman came to power. Expectation was perhaps things will stabilize. And initially he did talk about ensuring balance in foreign policy. But apparently increasingly realization is that perhaps Pakistani military and ISI have entrenched themselves fairly deeply, and there is reports available of the first one to go from Pakistan was the chairman of Chief of Staff Committee, General Shamshad Mirza, and from then on, October of 2024, a Dhaka cell was established in High Commission of Pakistan in Dhaka, headed by one brigadier, 2 colonels, 4 majors, and several other military personnel, both from Air Force and Navy as well. And it is inordinately, it's unusual for any diplomatic mission to have that kind of presence. And since then, one has also heard one after another, not only statements of Yunus in Beijing, describing Bangladesh as maritime gateway to India's northeast and 7 sisters, who could then become a part of Chinese economic engagement, etc. Statements also from several other people like Lashkar-e-Toiba commander Saifullah Saif, or even advisor of Yunus Fazlur Rahman, Major General Fazlur Rahman. One after another examples were showing that there is an enormous leaning and open threats as to how ISI is likely to use their base in Bangladesh against India. And we notice now that that kind of approach has not disappeared, and it is continuing since then. And I think India really needs to wake up from this emerging new triangular defense cooperation. Post-Sindoor, we have seen Pakistan placing so many new defense orders from China. China apparently is offering some of the similar equipment to Bangladesh as well, other than the economic entrenchment in Bangladesh. So I think it has to be a very, very proactive, almost assertive approach from Indian side, which doesn't have to really ape or copy what Chinese are doing, but apparently reassert India's connections with Bangladesh. And in that sense, I think a political appointment of High Commissioner, appointment of a High Commissioner who's a political person, perhaps is a very, very smart decision to connect with the political elite in Bangladesh and make sure that what was initially sort of committed by the new Prime Minister Tariq Rahman to follow a very, very pro-people and a balanced foreign policy is something that Bangladesh must follow. And I think if you really look at the popular mandate giving certain empowerment of the new regime, and they want to seek development, their linkages and connections with India are almost inevitable in that sense. So this entrenchment of ISI, which fundamentally is trying to recreate Pakistan in Bangladesh, where political elite is going to be increasingly controlled by military and intelligence.
It's like a mini Pakistan that is taking shape, Professor Swaran Singh.
That will automatically mean anti-India posturing, because they will have to build their turf and talk anti-India language in that sense. And in long term, that can be very dangerous sign. So I think India really needs to wake up and get their act together.
Ambassador Sikri, do you think that India's Bangladesh policy, or rather Bangladesh approach has been, very strategically uncertain after the Hasina era? Like there's a lot of strategic uncertainty in our policy towards Bangladesh?
No, I think that in the early months after Sheikh Hasina left Dhaka, India had really shown a lot of strategic restraint in its approach to Bangladesh, and we were prepared because, as we have been saying, our relationship with Bangladesh is essentially a people-to-people relationship. So we want to make sure that the people of Bangladesh, with all the supplies that were going from India, they asked us for rice, we gave them extra, consignments of rice and so on. So we've shown a lot of strategic restraint in that. And even though we knew and saw very clearly the kind of anti-India negativism that Muhammad Yunus was encouraging, and he had showed no interest at all in talking to our leaders or in coming to India. There was no high-level visit at all at that time. At the end of the whole 18 months, maybe the Khalilur Rahman, who was the NSA at the time, came to India. But it was a lot of strategic restraint. Now, when the BNP came to power, there was, in fact, a great deal of a sense of relief, because Jamaat-e-Islami was absolutely thought that, from their point of view, Jamaat-e-Islami thought they were coming to power and they were all set to take power, and they were quite shocked, I would say, that when they didn't get the majority and instead BNP got the 2/3 majority. Of course, I think BNP, Tariq Rahman, he had assured India of a lot of concern, consideration, return to democracy. Basically, what India wants in Bangladesh is democracy, stability and prosperity. And rather than follow up on the initial assurances that Tariq Rahman must have given on return to democracy and all, Awami League to come back into the political mainstream and, whether in an opposition or whatever, none of this has happened. Not even one thing has happened. And in fact, all the decisions that Muhammad Yunus took to reverse the smooth flow of trade and cooperation and economic investment between India and Bangladesh, all those reverse decisions remain in force. Not a single decision has been brought back to the original situation, allowing a more positive or more dynamic, a more mutually beneficial trade and economic pattern between India and Bangladesh. And actually, Bangladesh is suffering for this, because a lot of factories have had to close down. A lot of women who were working in the ready-made garment factories have become unemployed, hundreds and thousands of them. And yet there is no interest or no indication that there is going to be a coming back of the democratic system that prevailed earlier. This business of banning the Awami League makes no sense at all. And now, for example, today there is a huge measles epidemic in Bangladesh, and up to 1,000 children would have died, because during the Muhammad Yunus time, they stopped getting the UNICEF measles vaccine. And Muhammad Yunus said, I will, do an open tender. Of course, the open tender has not been done because of various bureaucratic reasons. The UNICEF vaccines have been stopped. And children, young children, less than 5 years old, are dying in large numbers. And, there's no indication of seriousness in tackling this.
It's very unfortunate, Ambassador Sikri. All of these promises are nothing but jumlas made by Tariq Rahman. He is continuously being controlled by the Jamaat, like you clearly stated. And he has lost his direction. That's what I believe. But General Kochar, now with Pakistan, China and Bangladesh bloc emerging, what kind of a challenge does it, pose to our security planners? And also, I would like you to put focus on the theatre commands as well, because it comes into focus at this very point when there's external pressure building on the eastern front as well as an existing threat on the western front.
Deepak, yes, I will come to that, but a brief comment on the first neighborhood policy. I think it's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And when we start criticizing Bangladesh, we also need to look inwards. And I think keeping Sheikh Hasina with us all this time has boomeranged a lot on us, and it has it has become a catalyst in disturbing the relations between India and Bangladesh. I would have appreciated that a temporary shelter may have been given to her. After that, she would have been allowed to go and take asylum anywhere she wanted to go. But we kept her there. And during elections, she kept on making strong statements against the BMP, against the other parties in Bangladesh, and we allowed that to happen. So I'm just a context to this I wanted to actually bring out, because it's when I talk to journalists from Bangladesh on number of TV programs and on podcast also, they have the opinion that the anti-India sentiment in Bangladesh is very strong even now. And that is why we are bringing out that the present government has not changed any of the policies of the previous government. Okay, now coming to this theaterization and all that. See, Bangladesh has never factored in our threat analysis earlier, because our main adversaries were Pakistan and China, and now it is more tilted towards China because of this new threat after April 2020. You see, now you have to see things from the macro level also and the micro level also. To guard these borders, I have been on the Bangladesh border. I can tell you this border is a very, very porous border. It is hardly fenced. It is not like China or Pakistan, the way we treated Bangladesh earlier. So now there is a huge challenge here, because the moment if you're going to find that China is bringing in all sorts of sophisticated equipment, everything, and the Air Force is being trained, and the JF-20 and 10C aircrafts are also going to come in the armory of Bangladesh. So it requires a total reorientation of our defense and offense strategy, and we do not have those kind of resources with us. Let me tell you, we have a 11 lakh strong army, which was around 13 lakhs, and after Agniveer and 2.5 years, there was no recruitment in the Indian army. The strength of the Indian army has gone down by 2 lakhs. I don't think that is the way to go about it, because the threat perception is not decreasing, it is increasing. And you are decreasing the strength of your own army. I think the government should relook at the Agniveer scheme, because ultimately Agniveer is...
We need to look at ways and means that we can indigenously, inculcate to counter the emerging threat that we see in the near future. But what's important is that we need to keep our policy also very dynamic, and that's the way forward, because it's a very, very dynamic situation in the East as well, because now I believe that the South Asian politics is more drifting away towards bloc-oriented politics.